That's right. Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
And my God, Dragon, has it really been it's been like a year since Better Call Saul season 6 premiered, right? Like right around that time.
I believe so, yes.
And we are entering into another kind of like closing of the loop for a couple other prestige shows, Dragon. I don't know if you heard, because I told you about the Barry season 4 trailer, but I'm pretty sure this has already been announced, but season 4 of Barry is going to be its last season.
I didn't, until I saw the trailer, I don't think it was officially announced it was the last season. I think they confirmed that with the trailer, I think.
And then, of course, Succession, we know, is going to go out, and Cobra Kai. I mean, this year we're losing, Cobra Kai is, we love Cobra Kai, but it's a little bit less prestige. So it kind of makes us reflect, Dragon. It kind of makes us want to go back and reflect on the prestige TV universe that started it all, the TV universe that gave us not one, but two of the greatest crime dramas in not just TV history, but I would say fictional history, dare I say. Just a monumental achievement. We're ranking all of the Albuquerque-Verse, baby. Every season of Better Call Saul, every season of Breaking Bad. Not El Camino, just because El Camino is too complicated to rank. It'd probably inevitably just be at the bottom, just because there's
depending on how you look at it. It's like an epilogue to season 5 of Breaking Bad, or it's a movie, or it depends. There's a lot of ways to look at El Camino. Plus, again, the fact movie versus series, and we're doing series on everything else. So
But Dragon, you know what I really think we should have included?
What, Tiki?
I think we should have included season 1 of Slippin' Jimmy.
Shut up.
No, I know. I'm sorry.
Why are you bringing that in here, man?
That.
Come on.
I deserve that.
How dare you bring that in here? We're talking about good times. Man, you should be ashamed of yourself.
I know. All right. Okay. So, Dragon, any word on how you went about ranking these? Any notes you want to hit on before we get to the countdown?
Well, before we start, for serendipity's sake, we should mention, the fact that this year falls on the it's been 10 years since Breaking Bad wrapped up. Breaking Bad wrapped up in 2013, 2023. And and I believe it's 15 years since are we approaching? Wait a minute. Yeah, it'd be 15 years for the start of Breaking Bad, wouldn't it?
That's crazy. What year did it start? 2008, I want to say?
Yeah, 2008, yeah.
Then, yeah, it's 15 years.
Well, there you go, yeah.
All right.
Yes. So, of course, we adore the Albuquerque-Verse with Vince
We've literally covered every episode of Better Call Saul.
Yes. Because we hated it. No, because we absolutely adore it.
That was just like the ultimate hate watch.
Yes, the ultimate hate watch. No,
I wouldn't call Gotham a hate watch, but I think
Gotham was not
finished. We kind of finished doing the recaps of that just out of sheer obligation towards the end, I think.
I mean, we had fun, though.
We did.
There wasn't hate in that. Come on.
No, there wasn't. I'm just saying, if it wasn't for us doing the podcast, that's probably not a show I would have stuck around with to the end, honestly.
Right, anyway. Point being, we adore the Albuquerque-Verse. Just what Vince Gilligan and company have done with that. They created the modern crime drama that not only just with Breaking Bad they could have rested on their laurels till the end of days. It would, essentially it's the new Wires as the kids would call it. But they had two bites at the apple with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and just two amazing kind of lineages of television, all fitting within the same universe. This is such an unprecedented. The last time this sort of thing happened, and still not to this degree of success, you had Cheers and you had Frasier.
Right.
Okay, it's not so rarely does this sort of thing happen in television history. So this is something they kind of celebrate and just kind of appreciate here. And when we do our ranking here, I want to be clear. All of this still premier television.
Absolutely.
Wonderful stuff. And especially when we get to Better Call Saul. I mean, there's not a bad season in the bunch. And a lot of this is just really, I want to be clear, at least my factory on my side of things, this is just looking back on things, and I have to put it somewhere. I'm not promising the most exciting revelations of where certain things are. This guy over here to my side is all about, look where I ranked it. Hot take this, hot take that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that on my list, honestly.
But me, I just want to talk about it. I just want to reflect on it since, it's been 10 years since Breaking Bad, and, we've gone through the journey of Better Call Saul, and we've reached the end of that journey. It just feels right to kind of go, basically a retroactive look, knowing what we know now. Of course, after getting the very retroactive show in Better Call Saul, it feels appropriate to kind of look back on things and reflect on, why we like certain things, maybe a few things we didn't like, and so on and so forth.
All right. Okay, so yeah, let's just kick things off, Dragon. Number 11. I guess I'll go ahead and go first. It's going to be the thing that started things off, Dragon. It's going to be Breaking Bad Season 1. And I hate doing that because Breaking Bad Season 1 is very obviously iconic. For me, I just think this is like the blueprint of everything, right? So there's clearly some iconic moments. I still to this day can't think of a better pilot episode. I think the pilot of Breaking Bad Season 1 is just like impeccable at just like launching into a series in a really compelling way. I just think with Season 1, obviously the writer's strike and the number of episodes and everything, that just hurts it, Dragon. I just feel like that's a handicap that is just hard to overcome. And then also, and just because, like you said, this is all quality, but I really think it's hard to argue that like the Schrader side of things was not the best developed in Season 1. Like the Schrader side of things really got going pretty much from Season 3 onwards. So, I mean, there was some good stuff in Season 2 with, the Tortuga of it all and everything. But I just think like, the Schrader side of things in Season 1, it was basically like they were more kind of like stock in-law characters that you would see on every, kind of prestige drama at the time. And it really took them a while to kind of break into it. But obviously we still have a lot of great stuff in Season 1. It's just, I feel like it's kind of like the training wheel season to a certain extent. All right. What's your number 11?
Well, it too is Breaking Bad Season 1.
All right.
I was going to say we could tag team, but then you just kept going. So I didn't really
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so look, this pains me as well. It pains me to put this at the bottom, but again, it's like there's somewhat of an objective thing here with my listing of things here. Because the only way I really could, because I love them all so much. I mean, I kind of have to because I agree. It's an excellent pilot season. Really, it is. I mean, for me, that's the thing. When I look back on Breaking Bad, I love the simplicity of what we initially were kind of like promised with the premise of Breaking Bad, which is what Season 1 covers very well. It's the building of things. It's and again, it's very much it's the adage of it takes three to get addicted to Breaking Bad. The initial Crazy Eight arc is stellar television. Just seeing Walter White grapple with his first moral dilemma. That's why I'm in for the show right there. I love that. And it's the this like each season of through all of the Albuquerque-Verse shows, there's kind of a theme attached to each season. At the very least, we are protagonists. So Season 1 is very much the physical transformation of Walter White. We go from the the Mr. Chips mustache and glasses, the Jim Gordon look, essentially, to he's starting to get into the Heisenberg of it all. Like we're not giving the goatee yet, but we've shaved the hair off, and we gave him the hat. So it's just obviously it's a riveting introduction to Bryan Cranston. You have the fun Walt and Jesse shenanigans, and all this the simplicity of the premise. But for me, as I always like to look back on Season 1, the gray matter of it all really is the beginning. It's like the little seedling of what we have beyond the very the very sympathetic premise for Walter White. Like, okay, he wants to raise money for his family before he dies, but then gray matter is like we instantly present him with a solution that cripples the entire show, and he says no. Why does he say no? It's like we see the ego under the surface, and that, of course, lays the path for where we go. But as my associate here has said, Tuco's a trip, man. Tuco's a great trip, and he's a lot of fun.
Tuco is absolutely the best thing about Season 1, hands down, no question.
What's interesting with Tuco, looking back on things, is that Tuco is kind of like an example of, and true to life, yes, but also he's kind of the media version of what you go into the show thinking, okay, this is what a street-level drug kingpin is going to be, and like this is going to be what they're contending with, someone who's very scary, and these guys are not cut out for this. So, again, so, and you just ultimately looking back, it's like, man, if only we knew then what we knew now, where they were going to go with like true, like, the deep cartel of it all. So all that's just really, really fun. But yeah, the problem with season one is you have the writer's strike, and the specific issue with the writer's strike is that our cliffhanger ending that should have ended the first season is now the opener of two. And that's a problem. And as Tiki said, like we do like the shoplifting thing with Marie, and we have like Hank was just kind of like a dumb jock in the first season, a little bit of in season two, and then he smartens up by three. So
I feel like the Tortuga incident is really the turning point for Hank, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you got to admit, though, it is kind of like a fun. Tuco ultimately is just a fun misdirect for what Walt and Jesse end up going up against.
It's a great kind of like sleight of hand.
So
through the first couple seasons.
So there's a question there when you look back on season one, if that's kind of like a wasted opportunity or not. Like if they knew they were going to get Gus Fring from the beginning, will we have just started with Fring, or do we need?
Sure.
It's a question. I think things worked out the way they should have. Where I think we need to build up Gus Fring. So, and plus getting Saul, just showing the scariness of Salamanca, it helps. So season one, very direct but incomplete. So we got to put at the bottom. We have comments.
Yes, we do. Koski, glad to see you here, man. He says season one had that scene where Walter blows up a guy with a rock and a box of scraps.
Yep.
He also says Walter in season one makes a list of reasons why he shouldn't kill that guy. Walter in season four, I'll just poison that kid. What?
Yep. But also, we should probably mention this thing. It's very obvious, but folks, there are going to be a lot of spoilers in this.
Yes, there are. Yes.
I'm just saying, if there's some poor hapless fool who says, I never watched these shows. Well, there you go.
Like, wait a minute. Walt poisons a kid in season 4? God damn it.
Basically, my mother's watching this show. I want her to know.
Oh, God.
Seriously, for the life of me, my mother refuses. She loves Better Call Saul. She refuses to watch Breaking Bad, and it drives me nuts.
Oh, that's crazy.
It drives me nuts to no end. Like, you will not.
Is it because she has like this is probably too personal a question, but is it because of the drug thing? Is the drug thing too sensitive for her?
No, I think it's purely spite, Tiki.
What do you mean spite?
No, it's just I keep asking her, like, I keep explaining to her, like, you've watched all Better Call Saul. Why would you watch Breaking Bad? And it's just she just refused. I don't know why. It's just despite me.
All right.
Purely out of spite.
Because I do know people who prefer Better Call Saul just because they have kind of like, some trauma regarding drugs. That's obviously not something I want to like dig into with your mother. But anyways.
Well, no, I'm sure. I assure you, it's purely spite.
All right. Okay, number 10, Dragon, and I'm going to give a pause to just confirm if this is or isn't your number 10 as well. Breaking Bad season 2? Yay, nay?
Yep, same track.
Okay, cool. Dragon,
I'll
let you do the starting pitch for this one.
But also, folks, just to note, this might not, again, mainly reflecting on things here, this may not be the most exciting, again, like where things end up on a list, just so you know. We'll see. I don't know what this guy's planning, but we'll see.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so...
so far, it's literally just been chronological order.
Yeah, so far. Yes, so I really... Honestly, I went back and forth on Season 2 because... Season 2 has an issue that really gets under my skin, obviously, which for me personally, I want to put 2 at the bottom, but it does pay things off tremendously well, and some of the best episodes of the show are in Season 2, so it's really hard to place Season 2 on things. Part of me wanted to rank it a little higher, but then I can't because that thing gets under my skin. Of course, you probably guessed that thing gets under my skin. It's Skylar in Season 2 is at her worst, in my opinion. Now, I know a lot of people lobbed a lot of unkind things at Anna Gunn throughout Breaking Bad.
And we just want to reiterate, we are not those people. We don't hate the character because she's a woman or anything. No. Obviously not.
Not just because she's like...
And we will say that in seasons, like basically starting at season 4 and 5, they really turned her around.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just... In the beginning, honestly, I even like her in season 1. It's just season 2 has always been the rough spot, and a little bit here and there of 3. But let's just say predominantly season 2 is the rough spot with Skylar, because it just seems unbelievable that she's not cutting Walt any slack. Because at this point, until the very end of season 2, she does not know what's going on. Yes, she suspects something, but still, like, her husband went missing. She knows he's sick. He possibly had a fugue state. She can't cut him. She can't cut her husband ailing with cancer like any break. She gives him the silent treatment like a child. That's where I draw the line. It's like, I will say all the nicest things.
The silent treatment stuff was rough for sure. Yeah,
I will say all the nicest things in the world about Vince Gilligan until I run out.
Bravo, Vince.
But that's like the one thing where it's like, I know he defends Skylar, but that's one choice he can't defend, I tell you.
Yeah, and so also, for me, I'm very much with you. I think season 2, it's definitely got some high highs. I really love the 747 down over Albuquerque thing. I think that's just like super clever, even though it didn't pay off in the way most people thought it would pay off. Just the cold opens. Like, I really think season 2 was where they started to perfect the art of the cold open, which was like that's like a really pivotal thing for me with Breaking Bad, and also kind of why one of the Breaking Bad seasons, I think you know which one, Dragon, it's not as high as it is for some people on my particular list, but I digress. It's interesting because I feel like season 2, it's almost like there absolutely are iconic moments in it. Obviously 3 days out is great.
4 days out.
Sorry. I think Peekaboo is honestly a really underrated episode, just as far as like just being emotionally devastating. Let's see. Of course, Better Call Saul. I think season 2, one of the really big hallmarks of it is just kind of like being the blueprint, kind of like laying out, like, if season 1 was the primer, Dragon, then this is like the foundation for everything going
I can't recall. Do you remember if Peekaboo comes before or after Saul Goodman enters the picture?
If who?
If Peekaboo comes before or after Better Call Saul.
I think before. I can Google it if you want.
Well, yeah, I ask because, I remember when Saul Goodman enters the picture, I think season 2 does hit like a real spike in quality. I'm not saying season 2 is bad, aside from the Skyler stuff I mentioned, but it just feels like there's like a new energy added to the season that then brings us back to the connective tissue of like the 747 of it all.
I also just think like up until Saul Goodman, and Peekaboo's episode 6, Better Call Saul is episode 8.
Because that makes sense.
Up until that point, like the season is really kind of like another issue is that although I do think the Jesse stuff is compelling, like we literally have some of the low of low moments for Jesse in this season. I feel like it does kind of drag itself out a little bit too much. Like, oh my God, Jesse's really in a bad spot right now.
Okay, Koski asked, was season 2 of the Pizza on the Roof season? No, sir, that was season 3.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So season 2, yes, it's we have the resolution to the Tuco affair is great, and we have Walt and Jesse in the precarious situation and the fallout of all that stuff that went on. But I think season 2 ultimately is all about unexpected directions taken, because think about it, especially like Saul Goodman entering the fray is one thing already, where he enters the fray, and we basically, looking back on the series as a whole, as we firmly established in Better Call Saul, Walt and Jesse would have gotten themselves caught, or like bad stuff would have happened to them. Their enterprise would have ended there had Saul Goodman not have plucked them from obscurity, essentially.
Right.
So we literally re-energized the show there, and we also introduced Gus Fring at the tail end of season 2. So a lot of important. We have a lot of interesting. And well, yes, Mike as well. I think that one's
pretty much completely by accident.
I know, but I love the fact that Bob Odenkirk being unable to shoot is what gives us thanks, by the way. So anyway, but it's the fact that we take these unexpected directions in 2, like plus just the whole after 4 days out, we learned that Walter is in remission, and we're dealing with that. It's like, okay, we've taken away the main thing of our show, essentially. Where do we go from here? So there's a lot of really good elements of season 2 for sure. But again, it's like,
I just think some of that kind of like emotionally really heavy stuff is just kind of like sort of hard to get through on a rewatch, including the Skylar stuff.
Yeah, no. For me, another thing with Skylar too is like the whole like she's smoking essentially to spite the baby. Ultimately,
oh my God!
Which the dark implication, by the way, you and I have talked about this once before. I think the dark implication is that she did this before, and that's what caused the what happened to Walter Jr.
Oh, yeah. I think we have talked about that before.
Yeah, and she doesn't. There's no I'm sorry, nothing. Like she's like, yeah, I did it. It's like what I'm saying. Like I throw my hands up in the air.
I mean, my one defense of the Skylar stuff in season 2 has always been that I do think it's paid off really well in the finale with her basically like, accumulating all this bullshit and just laying it out on him, just laying a giant truth bomb on him.
That's true.
I just think that they could have still done that and had the effect in like half the screen time. You know what I mean?
Season 2 also, in a good way, it demonstrates the danger. This is the season that addresses, and this is a good thing with Breaking Bad, because everyone, like you said, some people have hesitations where they will see, oh, I don't want to watch Breaking Bad, it's that drug show, which I think was the presumption I think a lot of people had from a distance, just hearing about the show and probably seeing the logo or something, just like, like it's gonna be one of those shows. This season 2 of all the seasons really does get into not the systemic of like just how wide just how massive an empire Walter White ultimately had a hand in building and ultimately built himself, but just the fact that we see the gritty, like we see with Peekaboo, we see what happened with the Splooge and his family, and then we have Jane. What happens with Jane and Jesse, the drug addiction and everything. So it goes. We see a drug den.
Like I said, it's just a very emotionally heavy season, which kind of makes it difficult to rewatch in certain spots, I think.
Certainly. So again, season 2 is very much it's an escalation of where season 1 went, but only it was obviously we get to see what these guys get to do with a more complete season, and it's quite impressive. And then of course, it's almost like I've told you this, but it's like the Curb Your Enthusiasm. The first season is just them throwing something against a wall and seeing what sticks, and then by the time they start to get the 2, it's like, hey, we're gonna have like a running through line and a payoff to the end of each season. That's ultimately what we do in the Albuquerque-Verse.
All right. Okay, so number 9, Drake, I have a feeling this is where we're going to start to, like, separate, but who knows? So I'll just go ahead and say it and then just kind of confirm. Better Call Saul Season 2.
You're on your own, Tiki.
Okay. All right. For me, I'll just go ahead and spoil my number 8 is Better Call Saul Season 1, and it was really, really close between the two of them. Like, ultimately, I do feel like Season 2 has a few more high highs than Season 1. Like, obviously, the big standout moment with Season 2 that we all remember, the inflatable montage, like one of the best montages in all of Better Call Saul, all of the Albuquerque-verse for that matter. The one thing with season 2 is that I really would have put season 1 below it before the rewatch. But for me, season 1, and I'll get there when I get to it. Obviously, it's my number 8. I already spoiled that. But is that I just feel like season 1 just has a lot more kind of like really cool sort of foreshadow moments. Whereas season 2, it's basically like, okay, like we basically have to rewind Jimmy's character arc to a certain extent in order to really push him forward into the Saul Goodman that we all know, because in here he's very much still in Jimmy McGill mode. I feel like it's the one season that kind of drags in the pacing of like, all right, like the kind of like, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory, with kind of like dragging out the Jimmy McGill stuff. I mean, the fact that the main conflict of the season coming down to like literal numbers on a court document is both impressive, but also, it's a little bit like when you compare it to other finales and other endgame scenarios in seasons in this universe, it is still pretty mundane. And I know that mundane is absolutely what this show thrives in. And don't get me wrong, I do think that conflict is compelling. But obviously that conflict was kind of just, sort of paving the way for the fucking explosion that we got in season 3, which was like literally all fireworks factory. So, yeah, that's where I stand on Better Call Saul season 2. I just think it's almost kind of like more of an expansion pack to season 1 than a full season in its own right. It's great. Clifford Maine is obviously like a big MVP, but yeah. Okay, let's see. Koski says, yeah, season 2 has the poster where Jesse and Walter are just sitting and chilling. So best season. Also, Burning Exeter, I'm not sure if you're still in the chat, but he says, headcanon, Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul share the same universe as The Shield, Sons of Anarchy, Mayans, MC, Yellowstone, and Shameless. Well, Burning Exeter, the only show that in my headcanon, and I think is almost kind of like officially linked to Breaking Bad, and Dragon, I've told you this before, in The Walking Dead, Merle Dixon, aka oh God, why am I blanking on the actor's name? Dragon Yondu, Michael Rooker. He had a stash of the blue meth in The Walking Dead season 2. So yeah. Anyways, all right, Dragon. I am curious. This is where our paths diverge. What is your number 9?
Well, my number 9 is Breaking Bad season 4.
Oh wow! Okay, well,
yeah,
that's honestly surprising. I really like that. That really just goes to show how in sync the two of us are with our opinions, because most people would rank that towards the top of this list. Okay, go ahead.
No. I knew season 4 was not going to be really high on things, because a lot of people love season 4, and at times I feel for the wrong reasons ultimately. Because again, remember, season 4 is.
I feel like season 4 is very much people being in like, yeah, Walt's a badass. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, season 4 is Breaking Bad at the height of its popularity in its run. Really, that's when it's at the height of its popularity. In terms of like everyone has seen the show, everyone's like keeping up with it, aside from the few oddballs like myself who didn't really get on board until like it was ending. Which okay, I'll binge the whole thing now since it's ending. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I mean. The cool thing about season 4 is that it starts from a point of tension in the whole, like the idea of the season's kind of it's a season long game of chess between Walt and Gus Fring. It's Walt versus Gus. Which retroactively it's so fast. I mean, it was really cool looking back on things. Retroactively, we have like the kind of the forerunner to this, where we have Gus Fring going up against Lalo, and we saw Gus Fring on his heels for a season, and him going up against Lalo. So seeing kind of where it came from, and seeing the shoe being on the other foot, and seeing how Gus Fring got so good and so protected and so smart in this sort of situation. So anyway, so this is a season where I think this is the big season where Jesse grows up. This is a season where he's out of the shadow. Basically, he's out of Walt's shadow thanks to Gus Fring, but also majorly, this is the big Mike standout season where we built up Mike very well in season 3. He's doing what he does in the background, just kind of hanging out, doing Mike stuff. And then, of course, this season's where we really get to know Mike, and we get to see him being paired with Jesse. And again, knowing more about that character, we now have layers in which we can see that, Mike. It's like a Men in Black thing, or Mike's been training a successor ultimately, and in a sense, as we kind of know with I've always used this analogy with Mike when we went through Better Call Saul. It's like Mike having kind of these sons in criminality, almost like The Godfather, in which you have
totally,
basically kind of these younger men that he's kind of mentored that have kind of filled the void of the son that died, in a sense where Jesse is Michael Corleone in terms of the one who's most suited to take over. Price being Fredo. Clearly, Nacho.
Everybody needs a Fredo.
Nacho being Sonny, and let's see, and then Saul, Jimmy McGill being Tom Hagen.
Oh yeah, of course.
So, but yes, I like the idea that Walt is kind of threatened by the father figure dynamic that he has with Mike, which I think plants a seed for season 5 ultimately. When you think about it, in terms of like he's really fundamentally he's jealous of the other bald guy in Jesse's life. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the misconception of this season, I feel, is like exactly what you said, Tiki, where it's. Everyone thinks this is Walt at his best, at his anti-hero best, and he's doing the "I am the one who knocks" speech. Well, guys,
Kofsky has a great comment about this that I want to highlight, Dragon. He says people really misinterpret the one who knocks speech. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Walt being badass; it was him being desperate and lying to himself.
Yeah, that's exactly.
It wasn't a "say my name" moment.
That's exactly my point, Kofsky, in which everyone always misinterprets that scene. They think it's Say My Name. It is not Say My Name. It's a diluted. It's a sad, strange little man. Basically defending himself to his wife, just giving himself a pep talk. It's Walt giving himself a pep talk.
Right,
This is the season where I think. Look, I'm not saying this is necessarily a critique against the season as a whole. Just in my opinion,
I mean, really, if you really break down the season, a lot of it, he's pretty pathetic.
Well, that's what I was. Yes. So ultimately, it's my opinion, mind you, but I feel that I don't care fully for this season in comparison to the rest because it's Walt on his heels and he's getting beat up left and right and he's a little whiny and it's like it does. I don't think it comes into the picture until the very end. We see Walt do something really clever and how he kind of turns Hector Salamanca into kind of a pawn in which he can get Gus Fring to a secret weapon to get Gus Fring, all that sort of the bomb of it all.
Mm-hmm.
The end, I think the huge aspect of season 4 that does really make it stand out and that makes it kind of hard to put it a little lower than I think a lot of people would like it to be is that we flesh out Gus Fring's backstory this season. Hermanos and Salud are amazing episodes, and they
awesome
give us a lot
of punch for sure. Yeah,
precisely. And again, like this gives us like a foray into the cartel, and like in such little screen time do we learn everything we need to know about Gus Fring and the cartel and how this world really works. The cartel is always, even since season 2, at the top of season 2 with Grilled and stuff, we have just the cartel being like this word of like, it's just like when you think drugs and you think New Mexico, you're thinking the cartel's on the horizon. The cartel's like the big booming thing, but we get to see it here, man. We get to see what the cartel's like and how vicious and brutal they can be. They're a force to be reckoned with. And the same token, though, while we have the high highs of that, we also have bullet points with Marie. Not great.
Yeah.
And,
and open house.
Well, did I say bullet? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean bullet points. I meant bullet points is fine. I meant open house.
Okay, it's all good. I
wrote it down wrong because they're always next to each other.
It's fine. It's fine.
Of course, I do love Saul, as you said with Skylar. I do love Saul Goodman and Skylar working together with the car wash. That helps improve the Skylar stuff. And I'll save crawl space for you, but clearly, good stuff.
All right. Okay, so number 8, Dragon. I already spoiled it. Is your number 8 Better Call Saul season 1?
No, Tiki, it's not.
Okay. All right. So yes, Better Call Saul season 1. For me, this is probably out of the entire universe, the season for me that improved the most on a rewatch. Because I gotta tell you, man, after I rewatched this, I rewatched this like shortly after Better Call Saul had wrapped up. And it fucking blew my mind. I mean, it really felt like going back to the first couple chapters of a great American novel or something and seeing everything set up. That being said, I just don't think there's the high highs in this. It's awesome setup. I mean, it is just fucking rock solid setup and character work and narrative foreshadowing. All of that is fucking excellent, Dragon. Just excellent. I just don't think, first of all, none of these characters are really formed yet. And that's not really a season 1 of Breaking Bad problem where it's like the writers don't really, because clearly they know where, to a certain extent, where they're taking these characters. But I would say Kim Wexler, we really liked her in season 1. It took a couple seasons for her to turn into literally one of the most dynamic and compelling TV characters of all time. She's really not at that level in season 1. In season 1, I do think that one of the big things holding it back is the Chuck stuff. It just takes up too much screen time. It's great. Some of the stuff with the brothers and the foreshadowing and everything like that is great. I just think the actual focus on his illness is just Dragon. It's always kind of like a barrier of entry on a rewatch for me. I love all the stuff thematically surrounding Chuck in season 1. I just think that too much screen time is just spent oh no, he's gonna have another episode. Yeah, I mean, obviously the Howard Hamlin revelation at the end of the season is iconic. Howard Hamlin in general is iconic. And he is like, I feel like he's the one character in this show. Like, I feel like even more so than Jimmy McGill himself, Dragon. Tell me if you agree. I feel like Howard Hamlin is definitely the one character in the show who he came out fully fresh out of the oven, episode fucking 1, right?
I would say so. Mind you, at the end of season 1, we do add like the big layer to him that he's not so bad after all. But still, so I
Right,
think
right. But I'm just saying, even as much as the first couple episodes with the whole Ham-Lindigo Blue thing, it's like it is such a well-defined, well-crafted character that obviously is going to be a big linchpin in the entire narrative going forward. So yeah, like I said, Dragon, season 1 of Better Call Saul, obviously, like I really think this is like a big, significant jump up from the first couple seasons of Breaking Bad. But it's still a setup season. It still doesn't necessarily have the high highs of everything that's coming after it, for me personally. All right. What's number 8 for you?
All right, number 8 for me. This is a tough one to place, I gotta be honest. Breaking Bad season 3.
Are you really just going to have all of the Better Call Saul seasons in the top 5?
I told you it was not going to be an exciting list. I told you from the beginning.
All right. I mean, I hope you change it up at least with one, but
I make no promises.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway, yeah. So
I think this is probably like the biggest. Like, this is in my top 5. So
it was a hard list to make. All right.
Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah. So Breaking Bad season 3. Look, I have a lot of love for season 3. I think it hits the sweet spot. It's right in the middle of things. Ultimately, of course, being season 3 makes sense. I love that. This. We kind of start off with Walt coming to grips with the 747 of it all. Here, he's coming to grips with essentially with the path that he's chosen here, and also he's trying to balance his humanity. It seems like when you look at this in comparison to season 5, you see really like this is Walt kind of trying to achieve a balance between the two, and the way in which we show that is this is the happiest Walt is ultimately in the show when you really look at it, because he's going to work for a bit. He's packing a little lunch. He's packing a little lunch and he's working for. This is the simplest and happiest the show's ever been. And then, of course, the thing with Jesse happens. He has to lump him in. Then, of course, Hank gets attacked by the cousin. So there are some hiccups, without question.
But there's hiccups in every job, right, Dragon? It's not always going to be a great day in the office.
Yeah, so the idea here is that there's guilt here, and he's retreating into his work, and the idea that all the reasons so fascinatingly we teed up into is that everything Walt did everything for is now gone. His family is essentially his marriage is he's essentially losing his family because Skylar is intending on divorcing him. And again, he's the cancer is in remission, so it's like, why is he doing it anymore? Really pushing into the why. Why does he do it? Well, he has nothing else. He's just his legacy right now is his work, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so this is but yeah, so I also would like how we do with the cartel aftermath and everything. And basically, we see the perfect meth operation going on with just him working for Gus Fring, and we have Gus Fring kind of steering the cousins off his tail, which that's a great threat that we do have. It's kind of Tuco 2.0 in a sense. The cousins who actually know what they're doing, and they're very menacing, and they're gunning for him with everything they got, and then they direct that to Hank, and it's utterly terrifying. Then we have we're putting the RV to rest, and we're doing a lot of really good stuff with season 3. I mean, the only thing I have is that Skylar is in a position that's more understandable from season 2, but there is still a little bit of rinse and repeat of Skylar, just get over it already.
Right, okay, for sure.
You won. He's on his heels in terms of the divorce. He threw the pizza.
I also feel like the way that Skylar's attitudes about drugs, specifically marijuana, is a little outdated.
Well, again, it was
I mean, I'm saying, Dragon, I don't even think even militant soccer moms of 2023, I don't think have that harsh of an opinion on marijuana.
Well,
Honestly.
it's less specifically Skylar Tiki. It's more of like, the whole DEA thing with Hank, in which they had that scene over the cigars talking about what's illegal and stuff, in which they mentioned marijuana. And obviously now it's unfortunately a little outdated. But then again, think about this.
Although I'm not sure about the New Mexico marijuana laws.
Well, here's my point. Any way you slice it,
it's weird how much it varies from state to state. Go ahead, though. Sorry.
Any way you slice it, the Albuquerque-Verse, one of the great things about it, very specifically set in time, and Better Call Saul makes a fine point of this. As time advances for us, the audience, we go straight back to 2002 onward in that show, and by that logic, any way you slice it, even though it is maybe a little outdated, it is of the time in which it came out.
Sure, very true.
I mean, the other problem of season 3, as much as I love it, the Ted Beneke move is very petty on Skylar's part.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but of course you get so many excellent episodes. I mean, particularly Fly.
I mean, without Ted Beneke, we wouldn't have like our best fan casting ever. Folks,
you ever need Bob Iger, Christopher Cousins, put him on speed dial. Cast Hollywood put his name on speed dial. But seriously, speaking of other kind of like standouts, you have Fly, and you have Half and Full Measures. Where this is the season in which we'd have like that excellent, not an introduction to Mike, but we had Mike in the background just as the PI, and then you see what does Mike do when he's not working for Saul Goodman specifically. He's taking Mylar balloons and he's shooting people and he's speechifying the Walt. It's like, it's great. We have a big cliffhanger ending. So honestly, season 3 in a vacuum, I think does.
It sounds to me like you really like season 3.
I do really like season 3.
I know. I'm kidding.
And this combined, so far, it's building to kind of my theory here, and a lot of things kind of build upon each other in terms of perfecting certain things. And this has like a great meeting in the middle of everything. While not all the way there, it's quite substantial.
All right, fair enough. Okay, my number 7 is going to be Breaking Bad season 4. All right, I can kind of speed run this because we've already talked about it. Yeah, Dragon, it's really interesting how you and I both kind of share the same opinions of this kind of being on the lower tier of Breaking Bad, even though so many people just think it's the best season ever. I don't want to just like discount the people who really love this season as just like the mindless, Walt's such a badass and it's got a lot of action. For me, Dragon, and you already know this, one of the big reasons why season 4 just sticks out in my mind. I mean, obviously it's got a lot of high highs. Of course it does. Like you mentioned, all the cartel stuff is fucking iconic, like legitimately some of the absolute best of the best stuff in the entire universe, no doubt about it whatsoever. Crawl Space, the last 10 minutes of Crawl Space, Dragon, it's just hands down the best of the Albuquerque-verse. I mean, I love Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul as a whole is like a better show than Breaking Bad. I think obviously you and I both agree on that. But about that last, the actual titular crawl episode, oh god, if Breaking Bad was just ended right there, I know it would have been a crazy cliffhanger. I know people would have been pissed, but man, just peak TV. But yeah, for me, it's the lack of really compelling cold opens, Dragon. That's really what it comes down to. Really, it comes down to even so far as if you look at the first 3 seasons and their cold opens, we have, the awesome opening of the pilot where it just throws you headfirst into it. It's like, what the hell is happening? Why is fucking Hal from Malcolm in the Middle in his underpants holding a gun? And then, obviously Breaking Bad season 2 opens in a really, really mysterious way with the 747 stuff and the pink teddy bear and everything. And then season 3, of course, I think season 3 might have the best season opening in the whole universe with the introduction of the cousins and the crawl and everything like that.
Yep.
And then we get to season 4 and it's just like a Gale flashback. It's a good Gale flashback. It's an interesting Gale flashback, but I really just felt like that was for me, a bad omen from the start of oh, shit, they're really not trying to be iconic with these openings.
Well, I think the point, Tiki, is it's more of just it's an episode versus a season opener kind of opening.
Right, but you know what I mean though, and like even God, I forget what was the opening of season 5. Can you refresh my memory?
Let's see.
Oh no, duh! The opening of season 5 is the fucking Denny's thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see what I mean? One of these things is not like the other, Dragon. Like I just feel like the ambition is just not there in the cold open department. And I like even when you go into like the last few episodes of this season, it's all just like, okay, we're gonna start the episode right after the point in which the episode ended. Like Gus just, Gus is on the brink of death. We're gonna bring him to a hospital. Walter's planning on bringing a bomb into a children's hospital. Isn't that fucked up? You know what I mean? Like, it really felt like this is the season for me. And cold opens are such a big pivotal part of the DNA of this universe. And this is a season to me where it just felt like the writers were like so caught up in the whole Gus versus Walt stuff that they really kind of almost gave up on the craft to a certain extent. And obviously there's big highs. Crawl spaces, as Koski says, it's the best scene of both series. I agree with that. But I don't know. It's definitely the season of Breaking Bad. Like seasons 1 and 2 are, a little bit more of a slog, but this is the one that I'm a little bit like the most frustrated with, especially because it consistently ranks as like the number 1. So yeah. All right. Well, that was a little therapy session there, Dragon. What's your number 7?
Okay, my number 7, I gotta be honest. I was tempted to put this a rung higher, but number 7 is Breaking Bad season 5.
Are you kidding me?
I'm going
number 7?
I'm about to tell you
what
why.
The fuck?
Wow.
I'm sorry, but someone's Better Call Saul bias is showing.
I warned you this would happen.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, I told. This is why I suggested maybe just talk about them versus rank them.
Say your piece.
I think I had a similar issue for you in terms of why I couldn't put it wrong higher. In terms of what held the neo-Nazi thing kind of held it back a little bit for me, slightly.
But you know what I hear you.
I'm aware. So here's the thing. So while we don't have, the cartel anymore, or the Gus Fring, or all that interesting backstory, this is obviously this is a season. This is a big payoff season in which we have Walt find the whole Mr. Chips to Scarface thing. Walt has become Scarface, ergo he is his own villain. So that's really it's the main point of the season. Obviously we have standouts like Todd, which I'm going to let my associate here speak to a little bit more, but yeah, it's just seeing Walt has become Gus Fring after taking him off the board, and this is him trying to become a kingpin, kind of like being literally building the empire. He's never really envisioned building an empire. Now he's at that stage, and this is kind of Walt's ego. The payoff to the fracture in Walt's ego from the very beginning of the whole losing gray matter. He's going to build his own gray matter unofficially and with a business that could be listed on the NASDAQ. So, I mean, each episode in season 5, I will say, it is the most perfected of the seasons of Breaking Bad. So I think it is top of the heap for Breaking Bad, obviously. And in looking at it, I think with like one minor exception, again, making peace with the neo-Nazi thing, because again, we have to. They're just more like we need scary muscle that's gun-toting and hateful and stuff that's going to do terrible things to Jess. That's the main reason we have neo-Nazis. But again, in service of the Walt thing, that's why it's kind of second nature there. But I think Skylar does win me over a lot in 5, as she did in 4. But 5, particularly in the second half of 5, I think she's great. I think she's great. She's justifying a lot of what she does. First half of 5, though, with the pool move, I mean, it's a little bit of a desperate move. It's not like a big knock against 5 or anything. It's just always like one little pet peeve I've had with season 5, in which she's just like she's waiting for him to die of cancer, which is brutal. Just But I mean, obviously, each episode, each chapter in 5 is like you have like we're in the final act of the story, and you feel like we're inching closer and closer to that act, and it's not in like an ad nauseum sort of way. It's like we're getting like we're progressing in a really interesting way. And Jesse is our audience surrogate, being horrified by Walter White at this point, where in season 1 we were very charmed or very much rooting for Walter White. So it's a great juxtaposition to where we started to where we're ending, which is again is the whole mission statement of the show. I mean, we kill Mike. That's huge. We have the big "say my name" moment. It's a justified version of it this time, and not just like I'm giving myself a pep talk. Ozymandias, again, just some riveting television, and Granite State. And again, what's so great about these two in combination with each other is you have, it's the wake up call followed by the introspection, and in a sense, not fully, but in a sense, we bring Walt back full circle to where he started. At the very least, seeing like kind of waking up to where he started and how how things have turned out for him, and it's very well told. I think we don't have Better Call Saul without the way season 5 turned out, but just looking at that objectively, it's kind of like, well, yeah, we don't have Better Call Saul without without what we did in Breaking Bad season 5. Ergo, Better Call Saul's a little higher for me.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, again, I don't know. Anyway.
I'm just saying, season 5 has some pretty damn high highs, man.
It does. I'm well aware of that.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm not trying to argue your opinion.
We kill a bunch of prisoners in 2 minutes. I'm well aware of the impressiveness. Again, it's impossible. It's almost impossible to rank these, frankly. Yeah. Okay.
I hear you. All right. Is that it?
I mean, it's wonderful. I'm going to let you gush about Ozymandias, but
Okay, for sure. Okay, Dragon, my number 6. I think this might be my most controversial ranking in the whole list, and I'm almost afraid to say it because
I've already had like 9 controversial rankings, so just go right ahead.
I just feel like this is like the season 4 of Breaking Bad. Oh God, Better Call Saul, season 3.
You,
I know.
Well, there we go. We're on even footing, Judas.
Dragon, I love how literally our first 2 were just like totally in sync with each other, and it was so pleasant. And now this is like the most we've ever been at each other's throats.
Freaking chicanery, man.
That is actually exactly my point.
Yeah.
I feel like season 3 lives and dies on the high of highs that is chicanery. And for me, Dragon, I'm sorry. I just think once chicanery happens, there's definitely a big wind down, and it's a big build up to chicanery. Chicanery itself is awesome, and I'm not saying that the stuff outside of chicanery is bad. But I don't know. I will say the Mike stuff in this season definitely feels like it's a little bit drawn out. Like this is let's see. I'm sorry. This was the season that introduced Gus, right? Or was that season 4?
No, that's this season.
That's what I thought. And my whole point with that and why I barely even remember it is that I just feel like with Gus, it's like, first of all, Dragon, I don't really care for the first episode where it's literally just Mike. Like, I feel like that's like the most kind of like self-satisfied that the writers have ever gotten with Mike. Like, yeah, let's take a whole episode to have Mike just tear apart a car. I don't know. I just think like the pacing of this season just feels off to me. It's obviously got the high highs, but I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like for more than any other season in this ranking, the high highs really do come down to one like huge landmark episode that I am not trying to discredit at all. But I will say that, like, as far as the storytelling goes, it's definitely more consistent than any of the stuff that's come before it. Like, season 4 of Breaking Bad, I do think probably has more high highs than just chicanery. Like, we already talked crawl space, the cartel stuff. But I just think this season is, like, as far as the actual storytelling goes, it is great. It is, like, an awesome kind of like downfall of Chuck McGill moment. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, again, it's very much just we build up to chicanery, and then there's kind of like a gradual downslide from chicanery. And the whole season kind of orbits around that one episode. And I just don't feel that way with any of the other seasons. So in a weird way, it's almost in a very unique position within this list. And it was definitely one of the harder seasons to rank on my end. But yeah, I'm just being honest with you. Just not a lot in the season really sticks out all that much outside of the obvious. So it's why it's going where it's going. That's why it's kind of just barely missed my top 5. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Oh, sweet Jesus. Oh, God, Dragon. Are you just literally going to go in chronological order?
Well, way to put a guy on the spot.
All right. Tell me what your number 6 is.
Better Call Saul season 1.
All right. Oh, God. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so look, I can say I love Better Call Saul more than Breaking Bad. And that's not a diss against Breaking Bad. That's just I just think Better Call Saul, I think hits the itch for me. I always love to see. I love mundanity and things, and Better Call Saul thrives in the mundanity. It's creating tension in these mundane moments, and I'm rooting for someone with very attainable goals. I'm there's something just I don't know. There's maybe a little bit more relatability in Jimmy McGill. I mean, look, the silly as it is to say, like Jimmy McGill's my spirit animal, man. I love this character. I do. I love Bryan Cranston, his performance of Walter White, mind you, and I also feel sympathy towards that character. But Jimmy McGill is like we've all seen. He's the poster boy for struggle, and you love it. And I feel when you look between the two shows, and the main difference is that Walter White, going back to the first episode of Breaking Bad, it's all about change and transformation, we're Breaking Bad. And Better Call Saul is self-discovery in the question of who are you? It's an identity story about, again, going from Jim McGill. Like if the guy's name's Jim McGill, why does he call himself Saul Goodman? It's kind of very directly looking at that, but then taking us on a really good kind of slow burning journey. Mm-hmm. And as I always, for the season 1 of Better Call Saul, I used the Legend of Korra example, where season 1 of Legend of Korra, they did not know they were coming back. And you get a sense that was what happened on Better Call Saul, in which they didn't know they were coming back. They thought it was like this could be a vanity season for all they know, in terms of like, hey, we want you to come back. If you're any good, maybe we'll bring you back for more. And, we have season 1, which essentially tells us everything we need to know about the backstory of Saul Goodman, and would let the audience kind of fill in the blanks in their heads if they never got a continuation. So in that sense, believe me, part of me wanted to put season 1 like you did, Tiki. A part of me wanted to put it over 2. I did. Because when you go back to it, there is a wonderful simplicity to it. But when I look at it, though, there is the one singular complaint that we somewhat had on 1. This is not a bad thing at all, and it's not a thing that bothers me, but it is like, if I had to look for one chink in the armor, it's that season 1 is a little archy.
No, absolutely it is, for sure.
And I don't think it's a bad thing, but
it's probably like the one season in this whole universe that doesn't have like a consistent through line to it.
And in a sense, it's kind of history repeating itself, to where season 1 of Breaking Bad, not that this is incomplete, mind you, but it's just in the sense of, had they known what they known then, this is like, okay, if we knew we were coming back for more, perhaps we would present it in the style that we do with the other seasons, where this one they did not know, and they're really feeling out the character this season, much like Walter White dictated his character arc when they knew they were gonna, they were hoping they were gonna get more than one season. You have that here with Jimmy, only we can only kind of, we know the ending already. That's the difference. It's kind of inverted how he's going to get from point A to point B. So anyway, point is, each season, when you look back on Better Call Saul in your rewatch, I wonder if you had this, each season has like an element of Saul Goodman applied to it that we deconstruct within him and see where it came from. So this season 1 is, we deconstruct the significance of Saul Goodman's law degree, the University of American Samoa, which pays off tremendously with all the Chuck and Jimmy stuff, particularly the whole "you're not a real lawyer," which is one of the best scenes in Better Call Saul. It's gut wrenching, and that's like the watch and then the rewatch on that. And of course, we have we have the Emmy episode for Jonathan Banks this season with 5-0.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I broke my boy.
Broke my boy, yes, the great Gordon Smith. So just there's it's a really good character. Season 1's an excellent character study on Jimmy McGill and just the feeling for this character, and then putting a fine point on things with Marco, who brings back kind of the Saul Goodman element into his life, and Chuck has really starting to set him down that path, and then we firmly have Chuck to blame for Saul Goodman as we get further into the story. So again, there's just it's a good kind of like bottle season of like, what if reality, if we never got any more Better Call Saul, this still would have really cut the mustard, man. And still for me would have been, I still would have probably possibly enjoyed more than Breaking Bad, but obviously having 5 seasons versus 1, I don't know.
All right, hot take. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's not putting down Breaking Bad though.
I know. All right. Number 5. This is probably going to be another one that you're going to be unhappy with, Dragon. It's another Better Call Saul season, and I have a couple of Breaking Bad seasons over it.
We're just going to be miserable this whole podcast. Just go right ahead. Just...
Better Call Saul, season 6.
I'm already regretting this. I don't know why I said yes to this.
Oh my God.
I want to get off.
I feel like I have a better explanation for this than I do for season 3. For season 3, for me, it really just kind of comes down to like, I like chicanery is such a high that the rest of the season doesn't look. This obviously, like, there's a lot of good stuff going on in this season for sure. And I just like Dragon. We're at the point. It's the top 5 of the best TV universe ever. All of these seasons are masterpieces, all right? But I think season 6, it's got 2 things that hold it back just a slight bit. And it's really just kind of like, at this point, I'm kind of like, I'm less looking, because obviously season 6, first of all, I would wager to say it's probably the most satisfying ending to any TV show ever. Just that whole final episode and how everything wraps up. I mean, it's just like I literally can't think of a more perfect ending if I tried. Basically everything from the Kim episode onwards is perfection. Dragon, they're the 2 things that are one, and I think that I'm gonna probably bring this up. Don't get me wrong, the payoff to the Howard Hamlin stuff is incredible. And if there is any argument, if there is any contention for the single best scene in this universe, I would say it both is the downfall of Howard Hamlin in that meeting on a comedic level, and then the obvious, like, actual death of Howard Hamlin. Like, those 2 scenes together are like, to me, the 2 things that really do rival that crawl space moment. We build up to it a little bit too slowly, man. Like, it pays off a little bit better in rewatch. It does, but I just remember when we were covering it week to week, it really did feel like, okay, like, obviously we know this is going to build up to something good, and it did. But again, I just kind of feel like it's like a screen time distribution issue a little bit, maybe. But and then the other thing, Dragon, it's the Jeff the cab driver thing. It's like, and it really, like, honestly, the Jeff the cab driver thing did not play as good for me. Like, it's one of the few things in Breaking Bad, in Better Call Saul, that actually kind of took a downturn for me once I did my rewatch. Because obviously, doing the rewatch, the original actor for Jeff is a little bit more fresh in your head once you get around to the recast. But not only is it the actor change, because I do think the actor did a good job with the role, and obviously Carol Burnett is iconic, and I think we got more for our money from Carol Burnett than we thought we would when we heard that she was going to be cast. I mean, she's like, it's like that perfect kind of poetic, like, in the end, an elderly person brought down Saul Goodman. I mean, that's like chef's kiss writing right there. But I really just feel like that recast of Jeff the cab driver, and also kind of like shifting around his threat level, even if it was a writing choice more so than a recasting choice, it still just feels a little bit off. Like how intimidating he is versus how pathetic he turns out to be. I understand it's the point of his character. It just feels a little off. And like I said, the recasting thing, it's not anything they could help, but it does kind of hurt that arc overall. And I just think once we do get into the black and white Gene timeline, I think it's really funny because we spend all this time thinking, like, when are we going to get to the Gene stuff? When are we going to get to the Gene stuff? Ultimately, Dragon, they probably could have spent one less episode in the Gene timeline and maybe one more episode in the Better Call in the Breaking Bad timeline. I don't know. I actually think the episode Breaking Bad itself is one of my least favorites of this season, just because I do think that the cameo was a little gratuitous at the end of the day, especially on a rewatch when all the hype around it has kind of died down. Aaron Paul is not looking good in that flashback. I actually think Aaron Paul looks a lot better in that recent Poppables ad, oddly enough. But yeah, ultimately it is just the end of the greatest crime saga in fictional history, arguably. So it's definitely got some stellar stuff to it. At the end of the day, Dragon, we're literally like, I truly think that the next 4 seasons that I'm talking about are perfection, even though you rank those 2 Breaking Bad seasons lower. But yeah, that's my say on it. All right, Dragon. What is your number 5?
I don't know why I said yes to this. I don't know why. All right, Better Call Saul, season 2.
All right.
So I mean, look, we build from season 1 here. After we've established everything with our very interesting characters. This is a season where, honestly, this is a season where you look back on season 2. We're looking within these characters to see what they really want. That season 2 is all about what they want. Is Jimmy, he wants he grows out of HHM. The HHM desire and wants to start his own business. So that's kind of like we're kind of transitioning to kind of Saul Goodman having his own. Again, it's the pursuit of the office, which is obviously for a lot of things, but it's the pursuit of the office, and thanks to the inflatable montage, this is the birth of the of basically the style and the flair of Saul Goodman. Mm-hmm. Essentially, as it's kind of expressed in dialogue in that season, what kind of lawyer do you want to be? Do you want to be a colorful lawyer or a boring lawyer? Essentially, and he wants to be a colorful lawyer. By the book lawyer. I'm just added the boring part, but regardless. Kim as well ultimately wants it. She wants to get out of the HHM shadow herself. Mike doesn't want to kill, but ultimately he's willing to kill Salamanca to protect his family after that haunting scene where the cousins threaten Kaylee Ehrmantraut, which really cheeses him off, understandably. It's here's the thing. Season 2, it's a fun and entertaining kind of lighter season before all the darkness of Breaking Bad kind of creeps in progressively each season, especially when we get to season 5. So it's kind of funny because season 4 is kind of a morning season, so you have like season 2 is like, honestly, it's kind of like the season 3 equivalent for Breaking Bad. It's like we're having like gags like the squat cobbler scene. We're having the inflatable montage. We have, we introduce Davis and Maine. It's good old Cliff Maine and Omar. It's a lot of fun to be had. Nothing really super heavy happens until, as always, when a Better Call Saul season, episode 9 with Nailed, in which we almost kill Chuck. And importantly with Chuck, this is where we start to question the right and wrong of Jimmy's scam here, where Chuck is being very petty, but ultimately, and the most fascinating thing about Chuck as a character is that Chuck is not wrong with what he says about Jimmy necessarily. He's not wrong about it, but he's definitely being petty and small, and there's definitely a personal motive there. As we established at the end of this season, we hold the whole Jimmy, like mom
that
called
is
out for him.
Really, really damn good cold open. I mean, that's one thing about Better Call Saul is that the cold opens tend to be more personal than cinematic, like Breaking Bad's, but man, do they cut deep.
I mean, Tiki, what you just hit on is kind of, I think, ultimately yet another reason. I think, given the 2 shows, I'm leaning towards Better Call Saul and a lot of stuff, where while it is kind of we kind of cut to the meat of it all with the shows a lot more, because I don't know if it's because we have less it might be because we have less characters or less kind of plot lines to follow. That possibly is it. Perhaps they just, in looking between the two shows over time, it's like, well, let's keep our narrative a little bit more focused here, so we can kind of like, obviously the Mike stories will overlap with the Nacho stories and so on and so forth. Anyway, but I mean, yeah, when you look at season 2, what we end on is just, we end on Chuck's hypocrisy of him scamming Jimmy after him saying, no, lawyers shouldn't scam people and everything. And of course, what does he do? It's click, he hits the tape recorder, and his brother, he opens up to him and he says, look, I did this for her. You were wrong, but I care about you. So I want you to know this. And what does Chuck do? He does not take his brother's word. He doesn't, he basically doesn't like take this to heart. He uses it to scam and blackmail Jimmy. Essentially, he uses it to kind of to con him, like he feels he's been conned in the past. It's a very petty thing. But again, I think we set up and pay off things all in one season versus kind of a grand scheme thing. Perhaps, I don't know. It just feels again, it's kind of on par what we did in Breaking Bad season 2 in terms of like starting to really set things up and pay them off. It just feels like there's kind of less fat to cut through.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, number 4, Dragon. I'm not even going to drag it out. It's Breaking Bad season 3. For me, this is the most pure Breaking Bad season. It's the season where we really develop Gus Fring. I really feel like the development of Gus Fring in the season is just absolutely impeccable. Like, I love how it basically takes the full season for Gus Fring to really turn into the big bad. But once he does, man, is he scary. Obviously, this is the season that we really, really, like, Mike Ehrmantraut really comes into his own as a character. The no half speeches speech is just...
Half measures.
The no half measures speech is, like, absolutely iconic. One of the greatest monologues in either of these shows. I really think that the cold open game is at its best in Breaking Bad season 3. I really do. We get stuff like the cousins. We get the one taste, and you'll know. We get Wendy. I really think that in season 3, they really went all out with making sure that every cold open was memorable. And that, to me, really leads a lot of identity to season 3. And I also just think that finale, like I said, that 1-2 punch, half measures, full measure. I mean, again, like, it's definitely like in competition with Crawl Space as far as like one of the greatest moments. I'm talking specifically the run moment.
Yeah.
But I mean, just that whole freaking arc. And I really do feel like Jesse is kind of like in the most pure form this season as well, because he's kind of like more of the fun, like not necessarily like, he's obviously recovering from the Jane stuff, but I feel like he's really going to turn downhill in season 4. And then that's when Mike's going to pick him back up. So this season is really kind of like the most pure Jesse. It's where we really get to see his soft spot for kids. Like, it was obvious before then, but it really comes to a highlight here. And then obviously, like you already said, stuff like the cousins is great. I love how the cousins are basically like kind of like another Tuco, like you said, where it's like you think they're going to be the big bads of the season, but then it kind of subverts that. And by the end, it turns out, oh, wait, no, this freaking Obama-looking chicken man is the big bad the whole time.
Oh, God. Look, someone's going to clip that one out.
God. Dragon, don't worry. We're not relevant enough for people to clip that out. I'm just saying, when Gus Fring first came onto the scene, that was the name that people were throwing around for what he looked like. You know it.
Yes, the Obama-looking chicken man. Yes.
I added the chicken man thing, but a lot of people said he was Obama. He looked like Obama.
It's the chicken man.
God.
Toy Story 2 reference for the kids.
All right, but yeah, I just really feel like this is the season. Like, everything that we know about this universe really crystallizes, pun intended, in this season. Mike Ehrmantraut really comes into his own. Gus Fring really rises to become a villain. This is probably the big transitional season for Hank, where we really start to feel for him.
Yeah, Hank gets smart this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even Skylar, she's still, like you said, Dragon, it's still frustrating, but she's more in the right this season. Her position is at least more understandable in this season. Yeah. And of course, this is a season where Saul Goodman really comes into his own. I mean, for my money, so many, this Obama looking chicken man.
Told you.
I know. So many things that really go on to just define this universe just get absolutely solidified in season 3, on top of just an utter gut-punching 1-2 punch of a final 2 episodes. So yeah, it's hard for me to rank season 3 any lower than this, for me personally. All right, what's your number 4?
This is hard because now I'm all self-conscious and I'm thinking about flipping things. But God.
Oh God!
I don't think I have it in me. I don't think I can do
it. You want to just quit the podcast? You want to just call it a night?
Yeah, let's just call it a night. I'm gonna regret this. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna blame you for it, but I'm gonna stick with it.
Oh God!
All right. Yeah. So, Better Call Saul season 3.
Okay.
Look, I love season 3. I really do. I love seeing a struggling Jimmy McGill. This is the big Chuck showdown season. It's our introduction of Gus Fring into the story. For the Mike side of things. We this season we see Jimmy becoming Saul Goodman by necessity. It's of course Chuck having a huge role in many respects this season into turning him into Saul Goodman. He's basically in kind of getting the law license essentially revoked for about roughly 2 seasons ultimately. Well, roughly all 2 seasons. He's basically destroyed Jimmy McGill, kind of the up and coming, hopefully honest, colorful but honest lawyer. He's kind of destroyed that. He's kind of destroyed Jimmy's law name and forced him to do commercials and sell that airtime as Saul Goodman. So in that sense, he's kind of forced him to take on the name. And then by the end of things, he basically is kind of pressuring him, saying, "You'll never change. I never cared much for you at all. So, you'll never change. Just be who you are," which essentially is pushing him into being Saul Goodman and ending things on bad terms for them. So he's very culpable in things ultimately. Of course, the big Saul Goodman, building thing we have this season is the commercial aspect of Saul Goodman. Literally, the commercial aspect. By the way, film crew, of course, introduced. Technically, they've been around since the beginning, but it's kind of fun that they really come into prominence in season 3.
It's kind of funny how they're the opposite of the skateboard twins.
Yeah.
Where we thought the skateboard twins would be the reoccurring comic relief, and then it totally ended up being the film crew instead.
Yeah. Absolutely. So also fun. One of the things I really love, I love the fact that we gave them only one, and I always respect the show for this. We only gave Jimmy McGill and Gus Fring one scene in the entire 2 series, and it's a scene that makes sense. And this is what I'm talking about, Tiki. I mean, you guys have boring taste. I don't know, but Better Call Saul makes boring fun.
It does. That really could be a poster quote.
It's just the fact that I love the stuff that makes sense, where it's just the idea that, okay, here's a scene in which these 2 characters can interact on the board, in which so many other prequel shows like Gotham, for example, have gone to so many lengths in which, can we have a thing that's in later Batman and find a way to put it in there? Can we do stuff? Can we have these crossovers?
Vince Gilligan's just empathetically no.
Exactly. while he's holding the sandwich, he's saying, "No,
I don't care."
Anyway,
no.
This Peter Gould's saying, "Hey Vince, what do you think of that?" "No, Peter, no." Anyway, I just love the idea of Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould being kind of like a Statler and Waldorf watching television together, almost Mystery Science Theater style.
You know what?
Little...
If Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould started a show like that, and that was like the extent of what we got as a spinoff to this universe, I would be damn satisfied with that.
It would be fun at the very least. They'd be the in-universe Siskel and Ebert. Imagine that.
Oh God, hell, dude, we need another Siskel and Ebert. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Anyway, the point being is the fact that we have that interaction. It's very small, it's very sparse, and it makes sense. It's the idea that these two guys will kind of hovering around each other but never interact, and we didn't come up with a bunch of scenes to put them in together with because they're like big parts of the show. So the fact that Mike Ehrmantraut and Kim Wexler never interact until the last season, and it makes sense that happens. So,
but it's a big interaction.
Absolutely. So again, this season we don't do the traditional courtroom drama because Better Call Saul very smartly wanted to just make themselves distinctive from the usual courtroom lawyer shows. So we have chicanery, which is a wonderful kind of a loophole around that, where it's a bar hearing essentially. And we have the big Michael McKean. He brings that scene on home like a Humphrey Bogart-esque performance. Man, he just he brings it on home. And for me, the highs of season 3 are, as with pretty much every season of Better Call Saul, let's be frank, almost every season, episodes 7 and 9. Yep. 7, one of my all-time favorites. Expenses from season 3, one of my all-time favorite episodes. It's the fact that this pushed him to the brink. It's a Tom Schnauz episode. We see Jimmy just in his utterly most desperate state ever, and he just breaks down crying, but then he kind of turns it into a scam at the end. I love that, and I love 9, in which I am the most mortally disgusted I've ever been with. One of the times I've been most mortally disgusted with Saul Goodman for what he did to a poor Irene Landry, what he did to her. So there's just...
Yeah, honestly, Dragon, what you just mentioned, that is like an element of season 3 that I feel like almost kind of gets forgotten about in comparison to chicanery, honestly.
I mean, for sure, but also, we kill off Chuck. That's pretty huge, too. I mean, I don't think...
Right, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. The Irene stuff kind of like comes in between these two really landmark moments, and I feel like that's kind of a shame because I honestly feel like the Irene stuff is just as potent as some of the Chuck stuff.
Now... and this is a knock that it's not a knock at all because I think they interact appropriately when it would make sense. But again, Jimmy and Mike do not have much interaction this season. That is a thing that continues on for the rest of the series, though. So I can't really take points off for that because that's the way Mike works in Breaking Bad. They reverse engineered it. In Breaking Bad, Mike was minimal to having a big role, and in Better Call Saul, we inverse that. Mm-hmm. He starts big, and then we kind of get minimal because that transitions us to Breaking Bad, in which that makes sense. So it's not really a problem, but I don't know. It's 3. I love 3, but we kind of hit bigger. We kind of hit bigger marks, and we progress things in really huge ways as we go on in the list. That's kind of why, as much as I would like to put 3 higher, I can't knock the strides that we make in the progressing seasons.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Also, Dragon, before we continue, I noticed something about our posters, and it's driving me absolutely fucking crazy.
What?
And I will never unsee it, and my OCD is ruined now because of it.
What is it now?
The fact that season 4 is the only season where it has a critic quote at the top.
Oh.
I hate Dragon. Oh my God, that ruined that. Oh, my OCD. It's painful.
Well, it does. It does fit for that season because everyone was giving that season all.
No, you're right. It does fit. It does fit. It's ironic. Yeah.
Oh, look at
like I think the text in the Breaking Bad season 3 poster is like it's a little jumble, but it's not a critic quote.
look at it's not a quote, but look at the little cell line on season 2. It's really funny.
Oh, I know. I like the
all becomes crystal clear. 2 buddies are sitting in chairs, just cooking meth together.
Wait a minute. Is that a critic quote at the bottom of the season 2 poster?
No, I think that's like I think it's just times and stuff too.
Okay.
I could be wrong, but I
but then I love how like with Better Call Saul, it's like the first season has like a tagline, but then it's like they just simplified it. They're like works of art.
Well, that's not a tagline. It just says from the creators of Breaking Bad, which is the first season. They need to tell everyone that. So.
Right. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
That's all that is. It's not really even a quote.
All right. Anyways, moving on. Number 3. Oh boy, like this might be another unpopular one, but again, Dragon, we're literally in the top 3. All of these seasons are amazing. We
hate each other's list already, so we're just not going to be happy at the end of this thing.
All right, Better Call Saul season 5.
Yep, I hate it.
Oh my god.
Go on.
Literally, I think this season, I honestly think all 4 of my top 5 are perfect seasons, Dragon. All right. Yep. There's like, I can't even change anything about season 5 to make it better. At this point, it literally is, it literally just comes down to personal opinion. All right.
Yep.
So with season 5, like, first of all, let's get the great stuff out of the way. And there's a lot of great stuff. This might be Kim Wexler's best season out of the whole run of the show. The ending of the season is iconic with the with the finger guns. Obviously we get introduced to Lalo. Lalo is wonderful. Probably the most compelling Gus Fring stuff we have in Better Call Saul is in this season. Probably. I will say my one downgrade with this season, Dragon, and it's why season 4 is my highest ranked Better Call Saul season, is that I feel like this is a little bit of an off season for Mike. Like, he is dealing with his own thing, but I feel like this is Mike's kind of like Breaking Bad season 4 season for Jesse, where it's like that was kind of like a really big transitional season for Jesse, and he wasn't, he was kind of like wallowing in his own misery a lot of the time in that season, and I feel like a lot of that kind of applies for Mike. Like, obviously the season 4 storyline for Mike is incredible, and we will get there when we get there. I just think, like, with this season, they're basically just like, okay, like, we basically kind of have to reset Mike's character to a certain extent after that. And Drake, that's literally the only nitpick I have with this season at all. This season is wonderful. It really is. I think that I honestly think that Magic Man is probably the best first episode of any Better Call Saul season, for my money. I just love that it kind of just instantly throws you into that kind of chaotic atmosphere. Yeah, I don't know. It's, at this point, it really is just kind of like picking your children. You know what I mean? Koski says,
I know what you mean, Tiki. Yes.
Well, I feel like you're picking the children based on the birth year.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry.
Is it my fault I feel in chronological ways sometimes?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm sorry. That was kind of mean. I'm sorry. Anyways. God. Koski says, to be fair, this is the top 3 of arguably 2 of the greatest shows of all time. So at this point, the ranking doesn't really say much. Yeah, absolutely, Koski. Drake, I am sorry. That I shouldn't have said that. I respect your ranking. And, like, honestly, the way you're doing it really is very valid, because it really is a situation where they just did kind of keep getting better and better. I'm more so kind of doing my ranking versus, based on kind of like, I don't know. I do get where you're coming from with how you've ordered things. It's not how I would personally do a ranking, but you know me. I am Mr. Hot Take, so.
Well, it's not like I've been saying this for the past 6 years plus or not.
Right. All right. Number 3 for you, Dragon.
Okay, number 3 for me is Better Call Saul Season 4. Now, again, I kind of played flip-flop in this one. I did. It's just that... So, Jimmy McGill, he's reconciling life after Chuck's death. And this is the season where, again, we got Ray Seahorn. Obviously, she's impressed from the beginning, obviously, but this season 4 onward really is when she really starts to take the center stage, and then 5 is probably the zenith of that. But 4 is when she really comes into focus, I feel. Mm-hmm. 4 is like, because again, like Jimmy's not giving her much to go off on in terms of like how he's grieving. So Kim's really, this is the season where Kim has that scene where she stands up to Howard Hamlin in a really big way when she yells at him. This is the beginning for her. Then we have her doing the Schweiker and Coakley thing. So a lot happens here. So so what's really fascinating looking back on this season is we explore Saul Goodman's character flaw, and like the same way we explored Walt's character flaw with the ego, the whole gray matter thing. So in the case of Saul Goodman, his character flaw is ultimately refusing to deal with his past, or more specifically, the Jimmy McGill, and his feelings, and particularly how he feels about Chuck. So his past being representative of Chuck. Because this season has the big blow up scene where honestly he and Kim have their first fight, their first full blown fight ever in the series. In this scene, when they like the whole Jimmy, you're always down, which is like gut wrenching, when she's like, that's the knife in the heart right there. And it's just the fact that he refuses to think about that last Chuck, because Chuck's words to him were like, "I never thought about you much at all." So that's kind of what Jimmy took away from that. And he just refuses to deal with his past, or look back on his past, or have regrets over his past. And that's something we kind of addressed in the very last episode of Better Call Saul. So we really put that into play here, and seeing how this character grieves Chuck. And also we introduce the fun Saul Goodman concept, which is the phones of this season. Which, by the way, when they did press releases and stuff, well, not press, they did like not press kits, but they did like the Emmy screeners, and the Emmy screeners came with like the phone. They sent the disc, the episodes there for Emmy consideration, and included like a little like a prepaid phone that was an actually working prepaid phone. It's really cool. You can actually buy them on eBay if you really.
What's really trippy?
What?
This is kind of off topic, but it kind of relates to like phone-based promotion. I got a call today on my cell phone, and it was literally listed as Ghostface from New York. And yeah, it was a full-blown Scream 6 ad, Dragon.
I gotta admit, that's impressive.
It was like honestly, I genuinely thought it was Sandy calling me, because he had asked for my phone number, and he was like, Tiki. No, he did say Tiki. He was like, Tyler, do you like scary movies? And I was like, okay, Sandy, how did you get your phone to say Scream or Ghostface? But no, it was just Ghostface.
Okay. Anyway, so season 4, what it really has in its corner, it's two things. One, you have the Mike and Werner Ziegler thing. Werner obviously is a big MVP of season 4, and seeing Mike have that friendship, and obviously how it goes south, and how we basically bring him to killing again, but in the most unexpected way possible, with a half measures lesson, ultimately. And we also have Something Stupid. I don't mean like something stupid in the season. I mean the Something Stupid montage, which is like one of the top tier montages from Better Call Saul, in which we see he and Kim kind of going on diverging paths in what they do in terms of their lawyering, and it leads to them kind of like getting back together again. So it just honestly, season 4 is in a really odd space, because it kind of recaps. It's kind of a mixture. It recaptures the fun of season 2, but mixes it with the desperation of season 3. So it's not a happy-go-lucky season, because obviously we're grieving, but it is also kind of like the again. So Chuck is a looming presence, kind of like 3, and Jimmy is also he's still trying to kind of rebuild things as he's like going, as he's kind of building. He's preparing clients for the next season. Essentially, is what he's doing when he's networking with the phones and everything. So a lot of this is working. I think it's really interesting how it all is kind of jiving together. And also you have fun things too, like the Andrew Stanton is directing an episode, which I gotta love. The fact that one of my guys is like, he's directing the episode. I still wish he was able to write an episode, but the writer's room and the way it works in the Albuquerque-Verse, there wouldn't have been room for him. I understand that, but it would have been really cool.
Just another Vince Gilligan. No.
No, they'd be all like Virginian gentlemen about it, though. It's like, well, thanks, but I think we got it covered. You're here, have a sandwich. There are a whole bunch of them in craft service.
Koski, I got to be honest with you. I was on the ticket about whether or not I want to go see Scream. I'm not really a big Scream fan. Horror comedy is not my thing. I'm more into like the A24 side of horror. But I'm not gonna lie, that promotion was legitimately like, damn. Maybe I should just go see that movie. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, anyways, the way we end things on season 4 is also we end really big in terms of the emotional denouement, which we have, Mike Ehrmantraut, having that the gut wrenching dilemma with Werner, and obviously the gobsmacking end where it's Saul good, man, and we obviously we then bring that back in season 5 very awesomely. So a lot of, four really works in terms of our progression for the overall story, and it's
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. All right. For me, number 2 is going to be Breaking Bad season 5. Yeah. Cha-cha. Yeah, Dragon, for my money, this is just like it's banger after banger. It really is. I just like every single freaking episode of this season down the line. I like it starts off with the whole, okay, how are we? It basically goes back to basics with the whole mobile drug lab thing with the pest control business, which is such freaking clever writing that dates. It really feels like a return to the RV days in those first few episodes. But then we get a lot. I mean, Dragon. A lot of people just kind of focus on the second half of this season for good reason. Obviously, the second half, again, banger after banger. Like, for my money, everything from Tuhajili all the way to the end is great. Rabid Dog is great. Confessions is haunting, is absolutely haunting. Probably one of the most underrated evil Walter White moments. Probably one of the most evil Walter White moments.
Confessions is brilliant.
I mean, everything in that back half is wonderful. But I really do think the front house is great too. The front half is great too. I really do. Like the front half, we have Dead Freight, for God's sake. That's an all-time great one. We have Say My Name. We have Buyout. I mean, these are great, awesome freaking episodes. We have Crystal Blue Persuasion, Dragon, which for me, for my money, that's like the only montage in this whole universe that can live up to the Inflatable Throne. I really do think Inflatable is probably the best montage in this universe, but Crystal Blue Persuasion comes close. I mean, obviously, Ozymandias, like, what more needs to be said about Ozymandias? I feel like at this point, just how much people have, like, memed and quoted that episode, and almost kind of, like, I try not to pay attention to the memes and stuff, just because I feel like it almost culturally kind of dilutes the impact of that episode. Not for me personally, I'm just saying on a cultural level. Like, if you were to go back and watch Breaking Bad now, seeing the memes that came out of Ozymandias, you know what I mean? Okay, sorry, Koski. Let me go back to your point. You think about my comment about season 5. Yeah, Koski, I very much agree. He says, here's the difference between Say My Name and I'm the One Who Knocks. Say My Name was done by Walter that actually was confident. The Knock was him desperately trying to act confident. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that is, like, in season 5 of Breaking Bad, we're just able to just absolutely marinate in the Scarface transition. We don't just Dragon. It's basically like if we got a full season of Gene in Better Call Saul. Like, it is just Walter White at his most despicable, purely being the villain. Honestly, I think the one criticism that I will give season 5 and why I think my Better Call Saul season is ranking up on top is that Todd is an awesome antagonist. Really. Like, I truly think that, I mean, obviously, like, Jesse Plemons is just a gem. He's just a gem. He's been in so many great things since Breaking Bad. I think he's probably had one of the best post-Breaking Bad careers out of anyone in the ensemble. But at the end of the day, I think what really does drag it down, I really wish they would have made Plemons more of the forefront, more of the big bad. And because Uncle Jack, he's just not that interesting. You know what I mean? Like, Todd is such an infinitely more interesting character, and Uncle Jack really is like the one Breaking Bad antagonist who feels a little bit stock. He really, like, and I think it's interesting because, like, Todd just comes from such a unique place. And for me, Todd feels like he fits into this world so well. He fits in like a glove because I feel like he's very much like a perverse mirror image of Gus Fring, like where much like Gus Fring, he's kind of like projecting this image of just being like an upstanding, polite young man, like he's basically kind of like Gaston if Gaston didn't, was socially inept, you know what I mean? But, yeah, I really think that Todd does elevate the season, but Uncle Jack does kind of bring it back down to earth just a little bit. I also think, as awesome as the cold open was for this season with the Denny's thing, one of the best cold opens, very much gets your mind racing like, oh my God, I have so many questions. What the hell is going to happen? I feel like that was another moment for me watching this show that was kind of like close to what I was feeling with Crawl Space and just my mind racing with possibilities. I don't necessarily love how we paid the machine gun off. I really don't. I don't love it. It's one of the more pulpy things that's
it's like the closest they could get to giving Walter White a literal Scarface, like, say hello to my little friend moment.
Sure. And I get it. And it is, and he did like science the shit out of it and whatever. Yeah. It's just a little bit unrealistic. But it's still, everything does just wrap up so well. I mean, Felina isn't as pitch perfect of a finale as Better Call Saul's ending is, but it's still pretty damn good. We get the ultimate resolution. I love the note that we end out on, that at the end of the day, this story has always been a love story, but it's been a love story between Heisenberg and his craft. It's really, like I said, Dragon, just if they would have just made Todd more of like kind of the forefront of the neo-Nazis, and Uncle Jack, I really think Uncle Jack is like the one thing, just because he just feels like a stock character they didn't really put much thought into. He's the one thing that kind of drags down the show just a little bit. But overall, it is just such a rock solid batch of episodes, and even Walter Jr. is compelling in this season. That's hard to do, Dragon. All right. Well, we know what our well, actually, I don't know. Dragon, are you really going in chronological order, or do you have season 6 in the spot?
Well, Tiki, I'm on the fence about it, man. I really am, because I keep switching them back and forth to the top two. It's really hard for me to say, but I kind of
just do what your heart tells you, man. I'm not going to judge you.
All right, well, probably going to go with Better Call Saul season 5.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, like I said, season 6 has it's one of the great endings to any fictional thing ever. So it's it's hard to argue against.
I know
I fully respect that.
That's why, Tiki.
I
kept going back and forth. I think I love season 5 of Better Call Saul. I really do. That's the thing. It's really tempting to put in the top spot because the episodes, just again, as I've said throughout the whole series, it just each season. For me, objectively, it's a better, as I've said years back, for so on and so forth. Is Better Call Saul, based on almost like an empirical thing, is like if season 5 of Breaking Bad is like the zenith of Breaking Bad, that's them at the top of their craft on that show, then if they go back to the well, they are bringing the knowledge and the experience that they had from that season onward. So progressively, each season gets better and better as they kind of figure out new things, reflecting on what they've done before and applying it to the season that builds progressively to our big ending, essentially. And interestingly, when you look at Better Call Saul and all the shows, it's the fact that Better Call Saul excels at the penultimate episode. So the penultimate season, by definition, it's also very good. It's a high point. So each episode in season 5 just kind of keeps getting better and better. And this essentially is the thing a lot of people speculate on with Better Call Saul. Season 5 is kind of like Saul Goodman with Jimmy McGill as his home life. That's essentially what we're looking at in season 5, where This is Saul Goodman in terms of like what element of him we're getting this season. We're pretty much getting into the Breaking Bad stuff in season 5, at the very least the elements of Breaking Bad in season 5, before we're literally in Breaking Bad in the next season. It's Saul Goodman dealing with the cartel directly, and the drug dealers and such. This is it's also the quest for an office, which again has been kind of in play since season 1 technically, but we're literally we're shopping around for offices. So again, so Mike and Jimmy, they parallel each other in that they both have suffered a loss, and they're both kind of like find themselves. And Jimmy did that in season 4. Now Mike is doing that over Werner this season. So they're both processing this loss in a bad way, and I like that when you look at what we do with the Mike stories, that Mike in the Dedicato Emacs story, he is, Gus Fring is, in a perverse way, he's manipulating Mike to direct his frustration at the cartel when Gus is the one who kind of ordered him to kill Werner. It's very twisted when you think about it. But again, it's like Gus has suffered a loss due to the cartel's meddling, and in a sense, he's direct this all at Lalo. That guy's the reason he's dead. It's Lalo.
Right, yeah.
Which also, not to lose the point of Lalo, is introduced at the end of 4, and he really gets to flourish in 5, and he's just a charming SOB, that Tony Dalton playing Lalo Salamanca.
Tony Dalton just absolutely exploded onto the scene with that role, man. It's such a great kind of like star-making turn for him.
And again, ultimately, with what Tony Dalton does and what he brings the role in with Lalo, and Lalo is just like literally a random name they pulled out in the Better Call Saul episode, and seeing where it ultimately paid off. Because, man, we have to make a character that's going to sound terrifying, but also fit our show. And in doing so, it's like, why would the Salamancas be so appealing to Don Eladio when ordinarily Hector's always in a bad mood and such a gruff guy? Well, you have a Lalo Salamanca is going to charm him for days at times. There you go. That's why there are some charming Salamancas, and there's a roguish charm, and there's a genuine charm. So I think we saved a lot of the Mike stuff with that progression there. Anyway, so again, we're barreling towards Breaking Bad with the Lalo and Saul Goodman, being in tandem with each other, and also we have the literal Crazy 8 setup, which I love retroactively what we do there. We see that Saul Goodman, and we kind of teed this up here. Saul Goodman is kind of somehow he's at least stringing the puppets, if not pulling the strings, as we reveal later. He's the reason Crazy 8. Hank is on to Walt and Jesse because Crazy 8 was the informant. We set that up in this season. There's a lot of great stuff there. And for me, the zenith of season 5, Bagman. Bagman is the most cinematic episode.
Yeah, I kind of saved that episode for you to talk about. I figured you'd have more to say about it.
To me, Bagman is the most cinematic episode of the Albuquerque-Verse in total. Mm-hmm. To me, it's Vince Gilligan putting it on screen. Basically, you know what? I had such a good time in Alchemy. I'm going to condense it into about an hour. And he did that. It was great. And just seeing the fact that we had this kind of makes up for the fact that season 4 we did not have Jimmy and Mike interact at all. We kind of crammed it all into one awesome episode. We did kind of a Midnight Run homage with them. And it's kind of Vince Gilligan's love of cinema in kind of an episode and putting these two characters in a desperate situation and just seeing them put through. And then following that, how can it get any better? We got Bad Choice Road, just cranking up the tension for that Lalo sequence.
Mm-hmm.
So just season 5 is ultimately building up the dread that will lead to ruin. That's essentially what season 5 is in total, which obviously, as I said, again, being known for the penultimate stuff, it does go into making season 5 really stand out, be wonderful. And it's just kind of a good sampling of everything we've had up to this point, as well as Howard Hamlin, who I feel I've undersold in all the Better Call Saul talk. Of course, we adore Howard Hamlin. He's just the fact that he's very likable in this season, and it's the fact that we keep.
Is it fair to say that Howard Hamlin is basically like the biggest character in our podcast history in the 10 years we've been doing this?
Honestly, yes, I think we do.
He's like Howard the Hamlin. Main character of So You Want to Be an Imagineer at this
frankly, yes. Frankly, we try pulling Howard Hamlin as often as we can because he's such a fascinating character, folks. Just the fact that he is. it's just the fact that there was like an instant kind of like recognition and resentment for like the attractive man in the room, essentially. Like the guy who's in all the nice suits who just all he wants to do is keep HHM running, keep it spinning.
Yep.
He wants the cushy lifestyle. He doesn't want malice, but he doesn't, it's just like that's his primary interest. And everything else serving that. He could have helped Jimmy if he wanted to, but he might have lost the nice office, It's that sort of thing. But again, he's trying to make it right, and what do? We toss bowling balls at his car, and we send prostitutes to embarrass him in front of Ed Begley Jr. That's what we do to him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so again, a lot of love for season 5.
Okay, in Dragon, my number 1, as you probably guessed, is Better Call Saul season 4. And honestly, I'm actually really proud of myself for this pick, and I think it's a super unconventional pick. And yes, it is a spicy hot take, I know. But for me, when I really evaluated everything, I truly feel like season 4 is like the zenith of this whole universe. I truly feel that. I think that like everything just crystallizes. I will say it is a little bit of a slow season on Jimmy's end. The phone stuff is, it's good. It's definitely good build up, and I love Pinata, as you mentioned. I honestly think that scene in Pinata is probably one of the most evil Jimmy McGill moments that we ever see. Just the sheer intimidation and scary. Like it's probably the most scary we ever see Jimmy McGill / Saul Goodman in the entirety of this universe is in Pinata. Then of course, Dragon, I really do think that the ending of season 4 is just utter perfection, lays the groundwork for everything moving forward. You could truly end the series right there and it would have been satisfying. Saul Goodman, I mean, it just fucking iconic. Just what a cliffhanger. What a way to go out. What a way to lead us into the last act of the series. But Dragon, of course, it all comes down to the Mike stuff. It really does. I mean, this season is like the absolute fucking high point for Mike Ehrmantraut as a character. Like, absolutely. I really feel like this is the one season in Better Call Saul where I was more looking forward to the Mike side of things in any individual episode than I was the Jimmy side of things. Even though the Jimmy side of things was great, I just think the emotional, moral dilemma that they put Mike into this season is so rich and so fucking tragic and so just absolutely ground shaking and fundamental towards the character development for him. I mean, I'm literally getting goosebumps thinking about it. Like it's utter perfection in, as far as like a 1-season arc for the Mike and Werner Ziegler dynamic. I mean, it is just absolutely just crazy how freaking insanely good and poetic and memorable and tragic all of that stuff is. And plus we get your boy Dragon. We get Stefan
Kapasik.
What?
Kapasik.
That's it. I wanted to make sure.
That we do.
Yeah, and I do think that this is probably the most menacing. It's definitely not the most menacing that we see Gus Fring in the whole universe, because obviously, there's Breaking Bad season 3 and 4. But I think it's probably the most threatening that we see Gus Fring within the context of this season or this series, just because of just like the lingering threat. Like, I feel like Gus Fring is more in the background this season than he is in season 5. In season 5, he's a lot more like out front, with how he's dealing with Nacho and everything. But in this season, just his like kind of like almost unspoken presence, and just the fact that like we know that he could end Werner's life in an instant. It hangs this whole tragic element and just utter suspense. And like I said, that's just the Mike side of things. Like you add that together with like a slow burn but absolutely pivotal chapter in the Jimmy McGill saga that ends with the literal formation of Saul Goodman. I'm sorry, Dragon. For my money, this is the best season in the Albuquerque-verse. On a thematic level, I really think that on a writing thematic level, it is the zenith for me. Woo! All right. I'm really proud of that pick, actually. I really am.
Yeah.
All right. And Dragon, what is your number one?
Number one is Better Call Saul Season 6.
All right.
So, honestly, Season 6 is like the most unique season of the bunch when you look at it. And it's because we have this, not just because it's the last season, but because this season took possibly the most bold risk in the series. Because it was the last season, they thought, what the heck, let's give it a shot. One could say, that they took the most bold chances in the plans and execution of the season. Anyway, no, seriously though, I mean, we already like starting not with the Gene scene, knowing where we're going to go ultimately at the end of things, just starting with the Wine and Roses song with just the in color, just tragedy of like seeing Saul Goodman's palace just dismantled.
I love that scene just as like a distinct confirmation. Like, yeah, folks, Saul Goodman was filthy fucking rich.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So yeah, all that, I mean, already it starts off on a great note.
And it's also a great contrast and kind of bookend to where Saul, where Jimmy started out in season 1, where he's just financially just absolutely in the hole.
Yeah, which is great. And I remember too, the other thing with season 6 that's really interesting, and again, I kept flip flopping between this and number 2 spot because the stuff I'm going to mention is stuff that's kind of I could see anyone making an argument for why it would be a rung lower, but I just ultimately I have to respect the ambition, especially despite the circumstances and everything. Because think about it, season 6, amidst the pandemic, this was figured out, and also, your main actor almost died on set.
Right.
And they also they had to factor in at this point, they had to factor in the way AMC does their last seasons and breaking things up. So they figured, okay, first half we're going to dedicate it to the HHM con, and then on the flip side, we're gonna basically tell the finale of it all with the Gene stuff, but everything basically the aftermath and the building of that. It's a fact that in theory, if I were going empirically here, the only flaw to me personally, the entire Better Call Saul series is in this season. The boxing scene is the jumping the shark moment of the series.
Yeah.
But it's earned. I want to be clear. It's entertaining. It's not bad. It's just entertaining. It's
right. It's just okay, folks. This is it's the one thing where we're not really advancing in anything here. Yeah, we know these two hate each other.
It's the one time they did something that did not advance the story. The one time.
Right. Which, when you break it down, that's a crazy track record.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Think about it. Breaking Bad.
Again, I direct you to Gotham, dear sir.
Sure. I'm saying Breaking Bad. Even you have you have Skylar gripes, and you have do we need the neo-Nazis? And then you have bits and the openers thing that you went on with season 4. You have little divots in Breaking Bad, but again, divots that bring character into it. And again, it's them figuring things out. It's them blazing the trail. But now we're coasting along the trail, man. It's the one as you're going straight to the ending, you're kind of looking back for saying did I just see what I thought I saw? But it was a sight though. It was they're boxing. Okay. Anyway, so this season, obviously, the back half, it's the tragic link up with Breaking Bad. We have the Gene story, which I kind of call. I'm not going to take a lot of pride in that because we called various. We talked about various things happening, so I didn't really stick to my guns on this. But at some point, I did predict we were going to do multiple Gene episodes.
No, you did, yeah, absolutely.
Which I am somewhat proud of, But what impresses me, honestly, the thing I keep raving about with season 6, and I think the reason ultimately I have to put it aside from just the very ending being very impressive, is the fact that with the additional 3 episodes, what we do is episode 10, kind of like season 4, like you highlight, and we could highlight with a couple Better Call Saul seasons, but especially for this, we really could have ended it at 10 if we really wanted to. It's a serviceable ending. He pulls, it's Nippy, the Nippy episode, which I love. And Nippy essentially is he hangs up the, it's kind of an optimistic ending, which he pulls the con, Gene comes to life again, but he doesn't put on the Saul Goodman suit. He just kind of goes off, and it's he could do it and he can put it down. It's the addict who can get over his vice, but in reality, though, Probably not. And we go on for 3 episodes, and those 3 episodes are kind of an El Camino in 3 parts, essentially. With kind of we bring in. I felt we brought in the Breaking Bad stuff appropriately, and we waited till the very end with purpose. I felt that in bringing back in a flashback structure, it is again Saul Goodman facing his kryptonite, which is looking back on himself. It's like looking back on kind of what brought him here. And I think as we get to the very end, we literally in the scene with him and Walter White, they're talking about regrets. And I think we're initially looking at this as like maybe looking back on it with pride or with anger with the cancer, with the cancer episode, with the cancer mark. And then ultimately, I think it's regret, which Kim Wexler really brings out in them. To we keep recontextualizing why we have these flashbacks to like the very key moments in Breaking Bad that do matter for him. And it's really cute, by the way, the fact that we have Better Call Saul, which gets a show, and then of course Breaking Bad, which is like the show came after or before, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so of course it's kind of fun. We have some really unique character interactions in this season. Again, Mike Ehrmantraut and Kim Wexler, where Kim Wexler literally almost offs Gus Fring or contemplates it for a moment.
Right.
Which is pretty bold. And again, this is the season where we're terrified that Kim Wexler might die. That's
oh yeah,
for
sure.
Mike may have to put her down. He's not going to be comfortable.
Right.
Anyway, but it's the fact that we have Kim Wexler and Jesse Pinkman having a scene. And honestly, the retroactive thing that we do in these flashbacks that is key is like, hey, Saul Goodman is the guy who essentially gives us, all the best parts of Breaking Bad. Ultimately, he is, Jimmy Gill. And we have, Kim Wexler recommending.
Hey, what's this? Season 2's getting a little too depressing. Better Call Saul.
Exactly. It's the fact that Kim Wexler points Jesse Pinkman to Saul Goodman in the first place to get him out of Dodge. So again, it's like I don't know. It's just really, it's really cyclical the way we do these things, and it's the fact that we wait all this time, and it's still not a full on like trial, but we put Saul Goodman in a courtroom in the very last episode with him as the him on the stand, essentially, and giving him a chance to kind of face the music, which is something he would never in a million years do unless for Kim Wexler, which is something we would never have without this show. So it's like in the dissemination of how we close out this universe in which Jesse Pinkman gets away, Walter White dies, and Saul Goodman faces the music. Like with any criminal conspiracy in history, we always have those 3 outcomes. And I like that we got to see each of those outcomes with this empire that was built in part because of all 3 of these men. And it felt appropriate just in the way in which we did it. So the ending is just very on point. It's very well. Doing the Christmas Carol thing was also really, really great and added that El Camino vibe to this season. So just everything clicked. We had the fun of the scam and then the horror of the realization of like all the times you were rooting for these 2, just knowing, oh, that poor Howard Hamlin. We gunned them down so brutally. Oh no. And you feel it. You feel that loss, and it's utterly. Utterly tragic.
Absolutely.
And we return to Saul Goodman, and again, it is horrifying, but it's also very gritty to find that we found him in a dumpster, and we're not laughing at it this time.
Right.
It's all relative. It just ended perfectly, and I just can't take away from just how right we ended it. So I guess that's why it's at the number 1 spot for me. It's just they kept getting better. They took chances in 6, and I think it all paid off nicely.
Right. Well, that's absolutely valid, Dragon. Honestly, Dragon, the whole I am a little bit surprised that you went in chronological order with your ranking, but I don't want to make you feel embarrassed or anything about it, because I absolutely respect it, because at the end of the day, and to a certain extent, although technically you did switch up Breaking Bad season 3 and 4, so I respect that. But at the end of the day, this is a universe that just consistently built upon itself and did get better over time. So, by all means, please, your opinions are absolutely don't let my reactions make you feel bad about where you place stuff. I absolutely respect what you did with your list. All right, folks. Well, if you want to know Dragon's full list, just go from left to right and then left to right again. I'm sorry, it is what it is. And for me, just to reiterate one more time, number 11, Breaking Bad season 1. Number 2, Breaking Bad season 2. Number 3, Better Call Saul, Season 2. I'm sorry. Number 11, number 10, Breaking Bad Season 2. Number 9, Better Call Saul, Season 3. Number 8, I'm sorry, number...
Don't you have these written down?
You know what? I am not looking at it, but yes, I probably should pull that up. You're right. That would probably help. All right. I'm sorry. Okay. Also, just a big shout out to Koski Productions for joining us as always. I really appreciate your engagement whenever you do, because Koski, man, you wonders where it's like you don't just stick around for 1 or 2 comments. Like when you're on a stream with us, you're like, it almost feels like you're like the 3rd guest. So I really appreciate that. All right. Number 11, Breaking Bad Season 1. Number 10, Breaking Bad Season 2. Number 9, Better Call Saul Season 2. Number 8, Better Call Saul Season 1. Number 7, Breaking Bad Season 4. Number 6, Better Call Saul Season 3. That's probably my most hot take of the whole list. Number 5, Better Call Saul Season 6. Number 4, Breaking Bad Season 3. Number 3, Better Call Saul Season 5. Number 2, Breaking Bad Season 5. And number 1, Better Call Saul Season 4. Absolutely not the thing that I thought would make it to number 1, but I'm very happy that it did in retrospect. All right, Dragon, that's it. Any final words?
Well, I just want to say thank you to Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould and all the wonderful people that made the Albuquerque-Verse happen. I want to thank Koski for sticking with us and hearing our blathering, basically getting kind of an economized version of all the seasons in which we talked about. We talked about both Breaking Bad and when we did that theme month, and then of course all the various episodes of Better Call Saul we've recapped. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, folks. This is just unprecedented. If any rankings baffle anyone, it's ultimately this is just such an unprecedented thing. It's just such an unprecedented thing in television history that it's just kind of like it is lightning in a bottle that was somehow captured twice. It's just it's less about ranking them. It's more about just kind of like re-experiencing kind of like something that's been cherished and beloved.
Sure.
It kind of meant a great deal to us watching it for the first time, and then just basically being so enamored with it, we can't shut up about it. And we still can't shut up about it.
No, I guarantee you Howard Hamlin is going to continue to be a frame of reference for us at the very least.
Yep.
All right, that's it. Have a good night, everyone. Bravo, Vince.